All right, let's talk about estimating repairs. So if we know the square footage and we can put it in one of three repair categories, bad, really bad, or awful, we're good. So the square footage is going to come from the tax assessor, which is often wrong, and not or, and from the bird dog, or you, by walking it off. Remember? Length times width equals area. Lay a tape measure on the ground. And now we can get real close. And with estimating repairs, close is good enough. With square footage, we want to get close. Then we're going to use the condition multiplier and adjust as required. Bad, really bad, or awful. So bad includes, bad is your basic rehab. The house needs a bathroom or bathrooms. It needs a kitchen. It needs paint. It needs flooring. It needs light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, and then there's miscellaneous, and then maybe some minor plumbing work or minor electrical. Some area might need to be rewired, something like that, and minor landscaping. I'm not talking about a big sod job, just a few boxwood bushes and just dressing it up, a little fertilizer, get some water on the lawn, and make it look good. That's your basic rehab. And by the way, when it comes to buying at the prices that we're going to be talking about here, if it isn't at least bad, you're probably not going to be able to buy it at the numbers we're talking about. Now, you might argue that 10 feet isn't, or $10 per square foot isn't enough. So if you have a 1,200 square foot house, that's $12,000. You argue that you can't do a kitchen, a bath, paint, flooring, fixtures, miscellaneous, minor plumbing, minor electrical, and minor landscaping for $12,000 on a 1,200 square foot house where you live. If you're making that argument in your mind, the conversation we had yesterday with Richard might be one to recall, because what most folks do is horribly overestimate the cost of repairs. You and I do it, realtors do it, it's very common, and so what I'm talking about here is an entry-level home. And that's important to point out, because an entry-level home, you don't need to do the things in there that you would on a move-up fancy schmancy house like yours or mine. So, although in California, I see 850 square foot houses with granite countertops and bamboo floors and wolf ranges and sub-zero refrigerators. And I'm thinking, this is an entry-level house? Well, I sometimes wonder if that's over-improving the house in any market, including this one. Some people argue that's what it takes if you want to get top dollar and you want to sell it quick, because you need to make your competing properties pale by comparison, and a wolf makes a GE look lame. Okay. So that's why I say adjust as required. So if your basic 1,200 square foot house in your market that needs kitchen, bathrooms, paint, flooring, fixtures, miscellaneous, minor plumbing, electrical, and landscaping is going to cost you $20,000, well then adjust accordingly. What's 1,200 into 20,000? I don't know, what, 14 bucks, something like that? Adjust it. The beauty of this, it's not set in stone. You can adjust it as required. However, I will caution you that being conservative and overestimating repairs to cover the what-ifs does have a point of diminishing return. So you can be so conservative on your repair estimates that you price yourself out of the market. Well, how's that happen? Well, let me jump ahead a little and we'll get to this again. We've already talked about determining after repair value. Okay? And we're going to take a deduction from that when we crunch the numbers here in a few minutes of 70% or, of 30% or 35%, depending on which set of numbers we're crunching. So, in other words, we take after repair value and we reduce it to cover profit margin, expenses, things like that, and then we reduce it again for repairs. And now what happens is you've got this after repair value in your bottom line, what you can pay for this property, figured out. Well, if you, and I'm going to expand on the thought here. Let's say you overestimate the after repair value. Doesn't what you can pay ride in tandem with that? Don't those numbers stay together? So if you overestimate the after repair value, now you might pay too much. If you underestimate the after repair value, now you might price yourself out of the market. Well, my point is that if you overestimate repairs, you create a wider spread between after repair value and what you can pay. So you're creating a greater distance between the tandem seats, if you will, and possibly pricing yourself out of the market. So whenever I hear somebody say, man, I'm getting killed, everybody is willing to pay more than me, I don't think this formula works. I say, okay, well, let's look at this. Before you decide that it doesn't work, let's make sure that we don't have some other problem. Like, for example, are you being too conservative with your after repair values and thereby pricing yourself out of the market? Or are you being too conservative with your repair costs and pricing yourself out of the market? A lot of folks have a tendency to do that because it feels good. So then what I'll say to you, if you were to come to me and say, I'm getting outbid, it doesn't work, I'd say, okay, let's look at the after repair value, let's look at your repairs, are you being too conservative? And then I'll say, do me a favor and go back and look at one of the houses that you were outbid on. The longer ago it was, the better, the easier it'll be to do this exercise, and it won't involve any waiting. Go look at what it was actually sold for to the other person who outbid you. Okay, so confirm what they paid. Then look, and it's all a matter of public record, look at what their buyer paid for the house, because that was the true after repair value. What their buyer paid for the house after the repairs were done. So then I'll ask for you to compare what you used as an after repair value when you did your evaluation and what it actually sold for, and if there's a difference between the two, and all of a sudden you might say, oh, okay, it's sold for $375 and I was using $325 as the after repair value. Well, you do that and you just lowered the most you can pay, because remember they ride in tandem, by $50,000. It feels good to be conservative. It isn't always productive. And the reason I bring it up here is because this is a place that it happens a lot. All right, so that's bad. Then there's really bad, and that would be 50% more. So if you've adjusted, you might want to adjust your really bad figure to 50. If you made an adjustment of 50%, say, on your bad figure, well, then adjust the really bad figure by 50%. So if we went to, say, $15 for bad, well, then I'd want to go to $22.50 for really bad. And really bad is everything above plus a new electrical panel, HVAC system, that's heating and air conditioning, a roof, major wall repairs, a bigger landscape job than just your basic rehab. And then awful, again, we would want to adjust upward if you feel the need. Those numbers work in my market, by the way. They probably work in yours. You just might not believe it. That's all. Awful is all the above in both bad and really bad, plus windows, siding, foundation issues, structural issues, major wood rot, rewire, replumb, major landscaping. When would you ever want to rewire a house? Maybe it's old and it's an old knob and tube system. Or maybe there was a fire. Fires have a tendency to melt wiring clear on the other side of the house if there was an electrical fire. Why would you want to replumb a house? Maybe it's old cast iron pipes. Maybe crackheads broke in and stole all the copper. I've had that happen. I think a whole house of copper is worth like 2 hits or something. I don't know. There's some trade value there. Boy, it sure costs a lot more to replace it. Using this strategy to estimate repairs, as opposed to going there and spending hours running around saying, hold it, hold it. There's a broken outlet cover right here. I got it. 25 cents. Using this strategy instead of that, not only frees you up to make more offers, which means more paychecks, but it also allows you to not have to go to the house at all, which is kind of clutch when we're talking junkers, because sometimes they really stink. And the longer you spend in them, the longer you smell like them after you leave. Now remember, that odor is the smell of money. I'm not sure that all of you are aware of how incredibly important and valuable this is. It changed my life. If you've got the bird dog going there, confirming square footage, you compare that to the tax assessor, you've got photos, outside, inside if possible. What do you need to go to the house for? How many of you like the idea of flipping houses that you've never seen? Okay, so a new rule to consider, and this is something that I've come up with recently that you may not have heard about, is, and it involves really quite small houses, in my opinion. If the place is under 1,000 feet, then I think you should consider adding 50% of whatever your cost per foot is, and just because it's so small. Now, the reason I suggest this is because when houses get really teeny, the cost to do stuff doesn't continue to go down. It sort of stops going down. It gets to a point where it doesn't matter if it's 800 square foot of carpet or 1,000 square foot of carpet. It's just, the cost of labor to put it in is going to make up in large part for the difference. So the cost of doing things definitely rises and falls with square footage because there's more of it that you're doing, but there is a point at which it just doesn't go down anymore. And I think that's about 1,000 square feet. So for you guys looking at smaller houses, you may want to add 50% of the cost per square foot, or up it by 50%. So if it's $10, make it $15. If it's $15, make it $22.50.